Hi everyone, welcome back to our channel. We left you with the question of what happens when you take a 25-year-old motorhome that's been sitting in storage for 10 years and drive 2,500 miles cross country. So,
here's your answer. So we left for this adventure on July 21st, which was a Monday, and we left at 3 o'clock in the morning because we had a 6 a.m. flight out of Orlando. And we did something a little different this time to save money. We went on Frontier Airlines. Now, I just want to let everybody know that these are our opinions, our very own opinions. Other people may have different views, but these are just our opinions. I'm not sure it was worth the money that we actually saved on Frontier Airlines. I thought it was a very interesting experience. When we got to the airport, we went through security. Actually, that was really smooth, except Mark here, he had to go through a couple times because he kept, beeping the machine.
They didn't like my belt buckle.
Yeah, it would be that. So while he was doing that, I was trying to scramble and pull together all of our electronics, and that conveyor belt just keeps going. We were glad when we got through security. So once we got through security and went out to the gate, we did have plenty of time, but we didn't get another cup of coffee because, I thought, well, I would just have coffee on the airplane. Wrong. There was coffee on the airplane. But there was coffee. There was coffee on the airplane for $4.29. There's also water on the airplane for $4.29. Everything was $4.29. So,
well, it went up from there. The snacks were more.
So we had a layover in Denver. So from Orlando to Denver, we didn't have any more coffee. We didn't have, I shouldn't say this. We didn't have any water because we didn't get any in the airport. But towards the end of that flight, I was so thirsty and so dry, I had to succumb and actually buy a bottle of water for $4.29.
And it was sure good.
Oh yeah, it was yummy water. So that was new. We've just never done we've never done a budget airline, and maybe we're just not cut out for that. But we did save money until we got to Denver. Tell us about breakfast at Denver, Mark.
Well, we had a croissant.
Mm-hmm. An everything bagel.
And a couple of mochas.
2 specialty coffees.
They were so special that they ran $33.
That was our breakfast, $33. So we thought that, yeah. So that was interesting. But at any rate, lesson learned. I think maybe next time we might belly up to the bar a little bit and at least get a cup of coffee on the plane, or at least be smart enough to buy coffee before we board, which we didn't. We had no water, we had no coffee. But like I said, lesson learned. The second leg of the flight was Denver to Payne Field in Everett, Washington. And, the flight was fine. I mean, we had bought a bottle of water while we were in Denver. And they actually gave us glasses and ice at no charge. So we did manage to have...
But only a single ice cube.
I don't know whether it was quite that bad. At any rate, so we did have water on the second flight. At any rate, that was an adventure, and our channel is all about adventures. So our new adventure was our Frontier Airlines experience. Now, I think a lot of people fly Frontier. They like the price. They know before they get on the plane they're not going to have coffee, so they are prepared. We were not prepared, so we did learn. So our tip for anyone who's flying on Frontier Airlines, please make sure that you give yourself enough time when you get to the airport to get your cup of coffee, to get your bottle of water, because unless you want to pay $4.29 once you get on the plane, it's not going to happen.
And you won't forget their seats for a long time. They're the hardest damn seats I've ever seen in my life.
They were not the most comfortable. But at any rate, we survived it, and we landed in Painfield right around noon West Coast time. So, of course, for us, it's already, 3 in the afternoon. So we were getting a little tired, but that's okay. At this point, we were pretty excited because we hadn't seen our motorhome for 10 years.
10 years.
We left it in storage, and we hadn't seen it. So it was kind of with some anxiety and anxiousness and happiness that we were going to actually see it. So from Everett, we rented a car and drove to Mount Vernon, Washington, which is where the motorhome actually was at Freightliner Northwest.
Which is the company that we had do all the work on the unit. We ended up having to put quite a bit of money into it to get it back on the road. But they were good. We have absolutely no complaints. Everything we needed done, they took care of. They were really good. We had a couple of issues just before we left with the batteries, and came over, looked at them, resolved them. So, and they allowed us, most importantly, to stay on property, plugged into power, without any fees, which was great because we needed a couple of days to put things together before we actually hit the road.
So a big shout out to Freightliner Northwest that's on Jack's Road in Mount Vernon.
Yep.
They were excellent.
Yep.
They worked with us. They worked with our daughter and son-in-law because the motorhome was going to go to them, and they worked really hard at getting everything done so that we would make it road ready. So, Mark, why don't you tell them a little bit about the motorhome? What it is, how big it is.
Okay. Our motorhome is a 1980. No, I'm sorry. Jesus, what am I talking about?
That's because we had an anniversary yesterday. All he's thinking about is 1980, which is when we got married. Happy 45th.
Long time ago.
Happy 45th.
Yeah, happy 45th.
So no, it wasn't a 1980 motorhome.
No, it wasn't a 1980. It was a 2000 Harney coach, which was only made for 2 or 3 years, and then Safari and Monaco, and there's a whole bunch of transactions that occurred there. But the bottom line is they got rid of the Harney coach line. So we actually have one of the few that are out there.
And it's called a Renegade.
Yeah, it's a 40-foot Harney coach Renegade, and it's a diesel pusher. It's got a 300 cat motor in it, Allison transmission. And when we initially put it in storage, we filled up the fuel, and the instructions to the place where we had it stored at was to start it up every week and run it for 30 minutes, keep the batteries charged up, because actually just prior to storage we put new batteries in it. So
of course we were going to go back sooner than 10 years, which we didn't.
Yeah, six months to a year after that we were going to go back and get it and bring it out here.
So much for that 6-month plan.
Which never happened. The flip side of that was the storage place never started the motorhome, so it had completely full fuel tanks and dead batteries. So we ended up having to have it towed over, which was an adventure all by itself. But
it seems that it's quite difficult for those big tow rigs to get a 40-foot motorhome out of a covered storage place in a storage unit. I don't think they have a whole lot of room. I think there was a little bit of a what would you call it, jockeying
It
to get it out.
It was tight.
I'm glad I wasn't there to watch it, but it took them 3 hours.
3 or 4 hours just to get it hooked up. Yeah.
Oh, and there's an hourly rate as well as mileage.
Yep.
So
they're expensive.
yeah. Well, sorry, I didn't mean to keep interrupting.
That's all right. That's all right. So anyway, it's a Harney coach, 40-foot single slide, 100 gallons of fuel and about 50 gallons gray and black tanks, holding tanks. I think it's 80 gallons of fresh water.
Well, we didn't try that out.
Not that we tried that, because the tanks need to be purged and cleaned and all that crap after 10 years. So, but the motorhome actually was in surprisingly good shape. It was dirty. 10 years of dirt. Fortunately, Freightliner actually ran it through the truck car wash, or truck wash, I guess, not a car wash.
So the outside wasn't bad,
Yeah.
but we've got a little video of the inside. It was pretty dirty.
Yeah, the inside was pretty rough. So
we also had some concern about the tires.
yeah.
So the tires were they original tires?
No.
No.
But they were still at that point 15 years old. So.
Okay, so they were 15-year-old tires that sat for 10 years.
Yep.
In one place. But we got several opinions on those tires. They didn't have flat spots. They, I don't know, did they need air? I'm assuming they didn't need any air. No flat spots, no rot, no cracking. So we took a chance on those tires. What else did they do to the motorhome? They did the computer.
Well, they put a new engine monitor computer in because
I know.
it wouldn't start.
Come on. Come to your
And,
spot. Sorry, Yoda needs his spot back. There you go. Are you all settled? Okay.
They did the brakes, they checked the brakes, tore it down, repacked all the bearings, did a complete engine service, all the filters, air filter, oil filter, fuel filters. Transmission was serviced. We had everything serviced on the coach.
And that full tank of diesel checked out.
Yeah, they actually sent a sample of it to the lab, and there was nothing wrong with it because it was completely full and no air was in there. And
so we should thank the storage unit actually for not starting it and keeping the tank completely full so that they didn't have a condensation buildup.
Yeah, or
So at any rate, that worked out for us.
Yeah. So what else did they do?
The generator. They
serviced the
generator because it has an Onan, right?
Yeah, Onan 6.5 kW.
Which runs on propane.
Actually, it's a propane generator, not diesel. They serviced the generator, they serviced the motor, transmission, brakes, drive line. Oh, we also had air tanks for the.
Oh, that's right.
The motorhome has air brakes and air suspension airbags for leveling and all of that. One of the tanks around the fitting actually rusted out. So they ended up having to replace the air tanks. Of course, Harney's no longer in business. Those tanks aren't available. So Freightliner took a couple of units off of semis that work on a semi, modified the mounting brackets and hardware, of course changed all the plumbing for the air system, and worked great.
And when we got to Washington, prior to going to Washington, we tried to get some reservations at some local campgrounds, and we ran into a couple problems. One of the problems we ran into was our coach is over 10 years old.
You know, they discriminate nowadays.
And so now it's a thing. If you have an older coach, some of these places won't take you. And then the other problem we ran into is we could get Monday and Tuesday night, but we couldn't get Wednesday night for whatever reason. Yep. And we were going to be there Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday night and leave Thursday morning. So when we realized that that was going to be a problem, we had called Freightliner before we left and said, hey, is it possible for us just to stay at the motorhome on the Freightliner property? And the answer was yes. And we had 50 amp service.
30.
Oh, 30.
30
Well,
amp,
30
which was
still
fine.
worked. Yep. And so that worked out really well.
Yeah. Could run an air conditioner and
So now I guess we could talk a little bit about the inside of the coach. So when you went inside the coach, it did smell like it had been closed up for 10 years. It was a little musty, I would say. But we eliminated most of that smell just by a good thorough cleaning. There had to have been an inch of dust on everything. The one thing that was a little disturbing for us is it didn't seem to be the way it was when we left. So as an example, in the bedroom, which is at the back of the coach, every single bit of linen that was in the motorhome, all the sheets that were on the bed, all the blankets, all the pillows, all the pillowcases, and even the pillowcases that weren't on the pillows, all of it was on the bed. All of it. Including the decorator pillows. And it's a 2000 coach, so you can imagine the nice desert sage green and mauve motif. But all of that was all on the back bed. And so what we ended up doing is, pulling off all of that bedding and taking it to the laundromat, which helped immensely because the bedding basically stunk. We had 2 carpets that were in the motorhome that were, throw carpets. They weren't, because it has actual carpet in it, but we had carpet on carpet. We had 2 of them that had basically disintegrated. We just had to toss them out because when you picked them up,
the back
the back, everything that was on the floor was half of the carpet that we had pulled up. So we lost a couple carpets, which wasn't any big deal. But other than that, we had a black and white refrigerator on the inside. So that had to have a thorough cleaning. The baking soda that was left in the refrigerator, I think we could have probably built a house with those.
It was solid.
It was pretty solid. I don't know. Maybe it was actually petrified. It was a pretty hard block of soda.
Yeah,
I don't think it was doing its job anymore. The amazing part that I found after doing a thorough cleaning is we had so many things that worked. The heater worked. The 3-way refrigerator worked. The air conditioning worked.
Well, knock on wood, every system ended up working.
Yeah,
other than the fresh water.
Yeah.
The fresh water, the manifold needs to be replaced.
For the incoming fresh water. So
Yeah.
we used portable water and we were able to use the sinks and the toilet and everything. We just didn't bring any water in. But as far as the inside goes, it was just filthy. And I have to say, it was cleaner when we were done, but it probably could have used, another go round. What else? Oh my goodness.
Well, that was really the motorhome. The rest of the time we spent going back home and checking out the homestead. And
yeah. So where we're actually located was about 45-minute drive from where both Mark and I grew up. I was actually born here in Florida and moved there when I was 5, but Mark actually lived there his whole life. And so going back on the island was pretty special. Mark and I grew up in Oak Harbor, Washington, which is located on the north end of Whidbey Island. Driving onto Whidbey Island after 10 years was very bittersweet. Deception Pass is beautiful with big trees and rocky cliffs, and our video really does not do it justice. The Deception Pass Bridge connects Fidalgo Island to Whidbey Island. The bridge has 2 spans, and Canoe Island is between the 2 spans. The bridge is 180 feet above the water below. Literally, millions of people visit Deception Pass every single year. They come and hike, camp, and walk both spans of the bridge. It still gives me weak knees thinking about walking across the bridge. To my right is Deception Island and North Beach. Cranberry Lake, a lake inside a Deception Pass Park, and North Beach were favorite places to go growing up on the island. I really believe we forgot how beautiful the evergreen trees were, how tall they were, the big rocky cliffs of Deception Pass. I think we took it for granted while we were living here.
So one of the things that was a big question mark was the license on the motorhome. So I called before we ever even flew out and talked to a gal at the auditor's office there in Mount Vernon, and she told me, well, it's been long enough that you may have to have it inspected or whatever, and maybe the best way to do things would be to get a 3-day trip pass. And I said, well, it'll take more than 3 days. And she said, well, no worries. You can get up to 3 of them, which, gives you 9 days. And I said, well, that'll work. So I just go to any licensing department and get that. And she said, yeah, no problems. Well, it didn't quite work out that way. So the day before we actually were going to leave, I went to the Department of Licensing. And fortunately, there was nobody there, so I had the full attention of the gal. And I told her, I wanted to get 3 3-day trip tickets to get our motorhome home. And she said, okay, kind of looking at me a little strange. Well, and I said, well, we need that much time to get home. And she goes, well, where's home? And I said, well, we're going to ultimately end up back in Florida. She goes, sir, are you aware that these trip tickets are only good in Washington State? You can't take them out of state? And I said, no, the gal on the phone failed to mention that little tidbit. So what are my options? And she goes, well, why don't you just renew your tags? And I said, but I wasn't given that option before. And I didn't really want to go through a safety inspection with the state patrol and all of that.
Plus, they told you it was going to be $800.
And yeah, it was going to be very expensive. And I said, I want the cheap way out here. And she said, just put new tags on it. I said, okay, how much is that? And she said, it's only $20 more than the 3 trip tickets would be. You're on. So we got the motorhome licensed, and
it's licensed for a year.
It's licensed for a whole year instead of 9 days. So I guess the deal worked out just fine. So
okay, now where'd you go?
Then I went to our favorite haunt, Whidbey Coffee.
There is nothing like Whidbey Coffee.
Sure.
Again, our opinions.
Yeah,
but
I'm sure everybody loves
goodness.
Starbucks and what they have to offer, but
on the East Coast, it's Dunkin' Donuts.
Dunkin' Donuts sucks.
Remember,
My
these
opinion,
are just our opinions.
But for us, there's nothing like Whidbey Coffee. So just out kitty corner from where we got the license for the motorhome, guess what was there? Whidbey Coffee. So I got us a couple of mochas and had to get a couple of travel mugs and
2 boxes of K-cups for home.
And K-cups for the Keurig, and best damn mocha we've had in at least 10 years.
I have to tell you, everybody, I hadn't had a Whidbey Coffee mocha in 10 years. And that first sip was heaven. It is so smooth. It is so good. And no, we're not being sponsored by Whidbey Coffee. I wish we were, but we are not. But it was home.
Yep.
I think that's part of it too, because, we lived there for 50 years. So at any rate, the Whidbey Coffee was the best.
It was good.
So we're going to wrap up here. This is the first video of a series that we're doing of our cross-country road trip adventure. We hope that you will stay tuned and follow us and listen to our adventures, because we had a great time. It was full of anxiousness and happiness and sadness and what are we going to do now moment. So please stay tuned, and we will see you next time.
Yep.
Bye for now.
Thanks.